The story begins in the province of Beijing, in Xiong, where a man is lying in the middle of an altar. The people around him ask if he really wants to continue with the ritual, and Emperor Kyushu commands them to proceed immediately. This man is known as Eunucch Likyu Su, the person behind all the power of the Empress of the Ming Empire, a secretive figure who monopolizes the territory and authority of the land. He is also known as the worst villain in history for manipulating the empire's politics for his own benefit, and he is our protagonist. Through great effort, he managed to transform the insignificant third empress into the reigning empress. However, despite all his successes, there is something he cannot achieve. Looking at a book of combat positions in his room, he remarks how unbelievable it is. Since he is a eunuch, it is obvious that he cannot partake in this kind of combat. Suddenly, someone bursts into the room, calling him an idiot and shouting for the old man. It is the third empress, Yuanhua, who demands to know why he wants to leave this world. She kneels and begs him to stop this mysterious ritual, asking if the union of yin and yang is really so important to him. She wants to know why he can't just be happy with her by his side. She says that if it's money or power he needs, she will give him everything he wants, as long as he stops the ritual. But Chielsu responds that he has already made his decision. He asks for her forgiveness for his betrayal, but says he cannot serve her until the end. Naturally, the question arises, why is our protagonist so obsessed with the union of yin and yang? Most people wouldn't understand, but for him, it is crucial. This is because he is a reincarnated soul, and in his past life, he was also a virgin. Even now, he remains a virgin, having lived more than 50 years without experiencing anything. The infamous reincarnation truck struck him while he was crossing the street, and he ended up in this martial world for 50 years. He died at 28 and reincarnated as a 12-year-old boy. The problem was that as soon as he arrived, he was kidnapped by a maniac. This was no ordinary kidnapper. The lunatic castrated all the men to sell them as own-ups on the black market. Despite all this, Sul-Su did everything possible to restore his masculinity. He transformed the princess into an empress just to meet an extremely renowned doctor. He mastered martial arts to the point of rebirth and became the most powerful martial artist in the palace. But even when one of the men knelt before him and declared that creating something out of nothing was impossible, he understood his intentions. The man apologized, explaining that only if he were reborn once more could he recover what he had lost. This made Chielsu question the purpose of money, power, and martial prowess if he remained a eunuch. These events led him to decide to reincarnate into a new body. He wants to experience a life full of combat and action behind closed doors. Essentially, he's a close combat prodigy, and if he can't enjoy life with the most extraordinary fighters, he won't be satisfied. He orders them to remove the Empress, who leaves crying, questioning how he could do this and not wanting to see him die in such an insignificant way. She calls him father because he raised her from childhood. Naturally, having known her since she was so young, he only sees her as a child or a younger sister. The moment she starts crying, he almost changes his mind. However, the decision has already been made, and to him, she has family who will have to cope with his loss. A man wearing a turban approaches and warns that the reincarnation technique is an extremely forbidden ritual. Out of every 100 people who attempt it, 99 die, and he asks if Chielsu really wants to risk it. Chielsu looks down and thinks that if he must live this way, it's better to die. He then orders the ritual to proceed. In life, he has conquered and enjoyed all that strength can bring. He has also spent all the wealth he could. All he wants now is to be reborn, and for that, he is willing to risk everything. As his entire body glows with a pink light, he sees a blurry old man calling to him. Slowly, he opens his eyes and rises, wondering where he is. The old man simply says he's glad the boy seems fine. However, Chielsu immediately recognizes who this bastard is. This is the same cursed old man who castrated him 50 years ago in the imperial palace. He also remembers that, in the past, he had tried to hunt this man down, only to discover he had been killed by some bandits. However, it seems that instead of reincarnation, what happened was a regression in time. He thought he would gain a new body by reincarnating, but as soon as he looks down his pants to check, the old man, confused, asks if he's hurt. Chielsu grins psychotically at him and thanks the old man for saving him before apologizing. The old man helps him up and mentions he has some herbs at home that would help the boy recover. But Chielsu laughs, breaks the man's finger, and asks if he plans to kidnap him again, to sell him as a eunuch. When the old man asks how he knows about this, Chul-Su twists the man's arm. Despite just regressing in time, he still remembers the martial arts of his previous life, and for someone who stood at the top of the Imperial Palace, defeating an old man is effortless. He puts the old man in a chokehold, saying that in his previous life, he was saddened to learn the old man had already been killed. But this time, it would be Chul-Su who would end him. After squeezing the life out of him, the man's body drops to the ground. Chul-Su spits on the corpse and reflects that it has been a long journey, but he finally reached this point. In his past life, even with all the power and wealth he amassed, he couldn't enjoy any of it. Now, however, he is a completely different person. Whether reincarnation or regression, from now on, he will live for the pleasures of life, if you catch my drift. And so begins the story of the second unit who reclaimed his masculinity. 2 months pass after his revenge against the cursed old man. Kiwusu walks across a bridge, freezing in the cold. At this moment, he is trying to reach the province of Gamsu, suffering along the way. But he tells himself that this pain is nothing compared to the life of pleasure he dreams of living. Although he has never experienced it, he knows it's more than just physical contact. If it were only that, he could simply earn money and buy some private combat sessions. However, he refuses to settle for such low-quality experiences. What he wants is to share true love with wonderful women, a connection of emotions and mental intentions. He dreams of the kind of love that leaves both people completely satisfied. Drooling at the thought, he declares this is the perfect thing to pursue. Still, he knows that to achieve this level of intimacy, he will need food and money. This is why he has decided to start his path toward becoming a hero in the martial world. Thinking he would reincarnate into the future, he had buried many treasures in his grave. Unfortunately, this isn't the case, but he still has the advantage of knowing what will happen 50 years into the future. With his martial prowess, he is confident that becoming a respected hero won't be too difficult. First, however, he needs to correct his habit of laughing like an idiot from his unit's gaze. And so he swears this is where the legendary story of the harem king Lee Cheol-Su begins. He signals toward a building and asks if anyone is inside. From within, someone hears the voice of a child and steps out, wondering how anyone could climb the mountain in such a blizzard. Kyung-Soo takes a deep breath and shouts for all to hear that he has lost his family to bandits and needs help to grow stronger. He declares that he wants to become a disciple of the joint clan. This martial faction combines 3 philosophies, Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism, to combat the dark forces of Django. However, to outsiders, they are often seen as either a demonic sect or a group of bandits. The old man rushes toward Kyul-Soo and scolds him for risking his life by climbing the mountain in winter. Kyul-Soo simply replies that nothing else matters if he can join the joint clan. The old man stops and tells him to show his arms and hands. He touches the boy's wrists and notices that the natural energy in Kyul-Soo's body is already expelling impurities. Somehow, the boy knows the technique required to ascend the mountain. The old man praises him, saying that if he managed to get there, it proves he has some talent. He asks if Chul-Soo knows the basics of martial arts, or if his family taught him anything. Chul-Soo claims that, yes, that's exactly the case. Of course, he's not about to reveal he has 50 years of experience. The old man introduces himself as Zhang Yung, leader of the Gangdong sect, and explains that there are several processes to join. However, based on Cheol-Soo's basic talent, he will approve him. Cheol-Soo celebrates as everything is going according to plan. He came to this place precisely because he knows Gangdong is on the brink of collapse, so they won't refuse a new disciple. Kyul-Soo starts walking around, doing pelvic exercises to prepare for future action. As he explores, however, he notices that the place is in far worse condition than he remembers. There isn't a single intact building, which is shocking given that he knows this sect will rise to become one of the top 5 in the world within 50 years. Seeing the scale of destruction now makes him doubt that a little. Zhang Yung tells him he must meet someone, the master of the sect's disciples. Soo thinks that the more chaotic Gangdong is now, the better for him. This way, he can become the prominent swordsman who saves a fallen sect, creating a legendary tale. They stop in front of a temple, and Zhang Yung calls for someone named Ruya, announcing the arrival of a new disciple, Lee Hyo-Soo. Hyosu shields himself from the harsh blizzard. Suddenly, someone rushes out of the building. Hyosu is startled as the person welcomes him as the new disciple. Kyulsu wonders why this person is so ridiculously handsome. It's not a master as he assumed. It's a boy around his age. He recalls from the manuscripts that this person was supposed to be incredibly ugly, but in person, he's shockingly good-looking. If this continued, his future was at risk. Kwaya asks if he's okay, and Chulsu responds that there's nothing wrong with him. He then extends his hand and tells Hwaya to stop being so formal, since they are brothers from now on. Chulsu is annoyed that this bastard is still so nice, secretly wishing the guy only had 3 centimeters at most. Kwaya tells him to hurry up because there are many places he wants to show him. Before Chulsu can say anything, Uya pulls him away, but strangely, Hyulsu doesn't want to be touched by him. He pulls his hand back and tells Hwaya not to touch him like that. Kwaya, or is Akuya. Kyuya still isn't sure if this is a man or a woman, and he's a bit confused, apologizes, saying it's their first time having a disciple and they got a bit too excited. Kyuya also apologizes, admitting he overreacted, while thinking that he can't afford to lose the opportunity to stay in this sect for now. Meanwhile, Hyuya is just observing him. The snowstorm continues to fall, and the old man reflects that winter in this place is finally ending. He hopes Chilsu gets along with Hyuya. 10 years ago, he accepted this child, who was an orphan at the time. After discovering how talented Hyuya was, he nurtured them up to this day. Now it's clear Hwaya is actually a boy, or perhaps not. It turns out Hwaya is a woman disguised as a man in the martial world. All the old man hopes is that her disguise isn't revealed to Kyolsu. Later that night, lying in bed, Kyolsu reflects that tomorrow marks the start of his phenomenal journey in this sect. However, up until now, he has been mistreated the entire time, all thanks to that bastard Jinhua. Earlier in the day, Jinhua introduced herself, apologizing for the sect's dilapidated state, but expressing a desire to show him the significance of the place. Even after the massacre 50 years ago, the palace of Ryongshang, where the master still resided, proved that the joint sect wasn't dead. She wanted to share its history with him. He will soon told her he understood, but asked her not to get too close because he's a bit shy. She agreed, while he wondered why his new friend seemed so downcast. He approached her and said mistakes happen, so there's no need to feel disheartened. He even encouraged her to tell him the story of the sect if she wanted to. Jinhui smiled brightly, and Chiol-su felt he had done the right thing. It was easy for him to calm down a kid like this by simply saying what they wanted to hear. What he couldn't understand was why this boy kept clinging to him. Back in his room, Chul-su writes on the wall, venting that he doesn't want to keep getting hugged by that boy. He's endured 50 years of celibacy and can't bear to see men anymore, especially one who's considered a genius among geniuses, the type who could rebuild an entire sect without breaking a sweat. In his past life, rumors said this person rejected every woman who approached him because he preferred to focus on martial power. Now, however, Chiolsu is certain Jinhua is gay. What he doesn't realize is that Jinhua is actually a woman. He recalls seeing Jinhua in the castle in his past life, thinking he was enjoying himself in some peculiar way. Little did he know, Jinhua was struggling with her disguise. Determined to kill Seuss, swears that in this life, he will ensure he gets to use what he's always wanted. Strangely, however, the weapon he always dreamed of wielding feels a little down today. He decides it's time to do some exercises to stay in shape. Meanwhile, Jin Hui, in her own room, is deep in thought. She wonders why she behaved so rudely toward the new disciple today. She couldn't control her excitement about welcoming someone new to her family. She recalls the moment Kilsu told her he would gladly listen to the sex story. The memory heals her, as she realizes he cared about her feelings, even if he seemed indifferent. She's eager to get closer to him, and wonders if this is what it feels like to have a younger brother. At the very least, she hopes to get close enough to share a hug without it being awkward. The next morning, Chiosu finishes washing a pot. He places it down, and notices how decrepit the kitchen is. It looks like it could collapse at any moment. Even though it feels strange to spend his time doing this, he knows he needs to build his reputation here. Making a good impression on the master and the senior disciple is the best way to do that. Of course, while cleaning and gathering vegetables, he doesn't miss the chance to practice his unique exercises. Suddenly, Jin Hui appears and asks what he's doing in the kitchen. Caught off guard, he nervously explains that he prepared breakfast on his own. She praises him, impressed by his efficiency, and smiles while Chul Su wonders why this bastard is so annoyingly beautiful. He responds that losing his family forced him to mature quickly. Jin Hui, visibly moved, reveals that she's also an orphan and admires his maturity. Cheol-soo finds it strange that this person keeps apologizing and saying they understand him. Jin-hui offers to help him prepare the vegetables. He also remembers that in the future, this person will have someone by their side who will be renowned as the most beautiful and powerful in the world. Although that's far off, he decides his best to maintain a good relationship with Jinhua. He thanks her for her help and heads off to wash some vegetables, all the while thinking that he must keep his distance. He is determined to become an extremely powerful martial artist and conquer all the women who will be dazzled by his achievements. Suddenly, the shelf holding the pot collapses. Jinhua turns to Cheol-soo and warns him to be careful as the debris is falling toward his head. He instinctively shields his face, but when he looks up, Jinhua is standing too close, asking if he's okay. Cheol-soo, flustered, replies that he's fine, while wondering what kind of situation he has gotten himself into. Jin-hui casually remarks that he's lighter than he looks, leaving Cheol-soo blushing as he catches a faint scent of wild flowers. Trying to shake off the moment, he snaps back to reality and, feeling a hand on his back and wrist, yells out, asking where his senior brother thinks he's touching. Jin-hui hastily explains that it wasn't intentional and pleads with him not to misunderstand. Cheol-soo, embarrassed, tells Jinhua to stop blushing because it's making the situation even weirder. Jinhua apologizes again, says she'll leave, and tells him to rest, assuming he must be shaken. As she walks away, Kyul-soo-seeth is thinking this cursed senior might just be trying to kill him indirectly. After all, if Master Jong-young saw this scene, he'd likely grab him by the neck and toss him out. He firmly tells Jin-hui not to help with chores anymore, declaring that as the junior, he will handle him himself. Jin-hui, visibly uncomfortable, reluctantly agrees, but seems a bit disheartened. A moment later, she picks up a small pot and asks if it's okay for her to give just a little help. He will suicize and gives in for now, saying it's fine. 2 months pass, and Master Jong-young gathers the disciples to ask what they think true martial strength is. Some believe strength comes from external sources, requiring the consumption of various elixirs. Others argue that it's internal, achieved through constant body training. Jong-young states that true strength lies in the balance of both external and internal energies. Only a martial artist who connects with both the world and their body can reach their full potential. Jin-hui, focused on training, acknowledges the lesson and walks off, telling Cheol-soo to train hard as well. Cheol-soo smiles mischievously, thinking that even if no one ordered him to, he'd still give it his all. After all, a superior body equals superior vitality for the ultimate combat. As someone who plans to enjoy countless battles, achieving maximum potential is a must. To him, this suffering is nothing but sweet preparation. Sweet drips to the ground. But he feels at peace, knowing his efforts over the past 2 months are finally paying off. It feels like the euphoria gym enthusiasts experienced when lifting heavier weights. In his past life, Kyul-soo hated his body. No matter how much he trained, he always maintained a somewhat cute appearance. This was because he had mastered a technique specifically designed for young-ish. Before discovering that this technique would permanently halt his body's development, he had even destroyed nations searching for elixirs. The more he reflects on this past, the angrier he becomes. In this life, he vows to ensure everything will be different. He will have a masculine body. Suddenly, Jinhua approaches. Cheol-soo asks why she's there, and she replies that she's finished for training and came to fetch him. Apparently, time flew by, and Cheol-soo didn't even realize training was over. Frustrated that the days seemed too short, he reluctantly follows her while she observes him silently. That night, high on the mountain, Cheol-soo realizes he's missing something essential for achieving his perfect body. This leads him to train cardiovascular endurance, which he deems crucial for navigating the Garden of Pleasures. However, the sect leader doesn't allow excessive training, fearing it could harm his young body, but Cheol-soo refuses to give up his nightly runs, believing they are key to becoming the king of vitality. Unbeknownst to him, Jinhua is watching from afar. When he notices her, he stumbles on a rock and goes tumbling down. Angry and embarrassed, he demands to know why she's there. Jinhua asks why he snuck away from the pavilion to train alone, reminding him that overexertion is dangerous. Kyoetsu fumes, annoyed that he failed to sense her energy due to his current weakness. He worries she might report this to the master, jeopardizing his secret training. At the same time, he can't abandon his runs, they're essential to his goal. In an emotional performance, he apologizes to Jin-hui, saying he needs the training because he's weak, untalented, and forgets everything he learns. Tearing up, he claims he hates falling behind, and that if he doesn't push himself, he'll never be able to stand alongside his friend. Jinhui, visibly shaken, listens as Chiol-soo continues his act, crying and pleading not to be expelled. Moved, Jinhui hugs him tightly, apologizing for not realizing how much he was suffering. But this was the last thing Chiol-soo wanted. As he tries to wriggle free, Jinhui holds him firmly, telling him not to cry. Chiol-soo is mortified, thinking about how his first hug ended up being with a man. He had hoped to save this milestone for a breathtaking beauty, yet here he is, trapped in Jinhui's iron grip. While Jinhui glows in bliss, Chiol-soo notices something oddly soft pressing against his head. The scene shifts to a memory of a young girl standing among a pile of dead animals as people call her a monster. Angrily, she glares back at them. Jong Young appears, offering her 2 rice cakes, and tells her that like him, she's a human under the same sky. He kneels and asks if she would follow him. Back in the present, Jinhui tells Chul-soo that the master wouldn't expel him just for lacking martial arts talent. Now that he's part of the sect, he's family and will always be their junior. Chul-soo pulls away from the hug, surprised to feel for the first time a hint of sympathy for Jinhui. Despite his immense talent and mastery of martial arts, Jinhui has the condition of gynecomastia, that faintly noticeable chest some men have. And so, Chiol-soo believes that what he felt against his head earlier must have been Jinhui's chest, specifically the result of his gynecomastia. Feeling pity from the poor guy, Chiol-soo convinces himself there's no doubt Jinhui is a man, as this was already confirmed back at the palace. Time passes how much? He's not sure, but the sect leader announces that they've completed their external body training. Chiol-soo's monsters, muscles, are well developed, and it's now time to begin internal arts training. Jinhui congratulates him enthusiastically, which embarrasses Chiol-soo. He's fed up with how much Jinhui keeps involving herself in everything he does. The leader notices Chiol-soo's discomfort and asks if something is wrong. Chiol-soo brushes it off, saying it's nothing, while thinking that he has bigger problems than this person right now. Thanking the leader, he requests not to reduce his external training regimen. The master seems displeased by this, and Chiol-soo knows he's right. Typically, beginners only need to train their external bodies to maintain basic physical condition, with the rest of their time dedicated to learning internal techniques or weapons training. But Chiol-soo has a different goal, to build the perfect body that will captivate women. After all, he has to compete with Junhua, who's much more attractive than him. The leader asks why he's so adamant about continuing external training. Chibol-soo explains that despite appearing talented, he actually develops slowly. He wants to contribute more than anyone else to rebuilding the sect and believes that additional effort will help achieve that. He acknowledges that continuing such training isn't the most efficient path, but it's not impossible. Moreover, if 2 fighters use the same sword strike, the one with greater strength will win. This slight advantage, he believes, will not only secure his victories, but also help him eventually attract an extraordinary woman who will fall for his strength. Smiling, he pleads with the master to allow it, confident that he can push himself to the limit. The leader is impressed by the determination in Chiol-soo's eyes. Here is someone who recognizes his ordinary talent, yet strives to exceed it through sheer effort. Reflecting on the essence of the sect, to help individuals reach their maximum potential, the leader considers that certain traditions were abandoned as the sect deteriorated. Perhaps Chiol-soo's resolve is precisely what's needed to restore what was lost. Handing him a scroll. The leader says it contains the foundational formula for the Yang symbiote martial art. Chiol-soo, confused, asks if this means he has permission to continue external training. The leader explains that the martial world is cruel to those without talent, but for those willing to face challenges, all paths open. Thus, Chul-soo is permitted to continue his external training, but must also master the internal technique detailed in the scroll. Grinning, Chul-soo thanks him. The leader then begins infusing energy into Chul-soo's body, instructing him to guide it along the paths described in the scroll. As the warm, gentle energy flows through him, Chul-soo realizes it's completely different from the cold, sharp energy of the unit's techniques he mastered in his past life. This is Yang Chai, vital and rejuvenating. The leader, Jong Young, praises him for reaching the realm of internal energy. Chul-soo pats his chest proudly, knowing he's no longer a eunuch. From this moment on, he truly feels we're born as a master. Jinhui smiles joyfully, witnessing his progress. Later that night, Jinhui tells the leader she wants to train externally alongside Chul-soo. She explains that, as a senior, she wants to lead by example, just as their leader does. The master, impressed by her sense of camaraderie, permits it, saying that even in the worst-case scenario, it will be a valuable learning experience. Looking out the window, the master feels hopeful, seeing these two young disciples earnestly working to rebuild the sect. Perhaps he thinks the long-held dreams of the previous master might finally come true. The next day, Chil-Su practices his punches, his face flushed as he begins to sense the new yang energy. Still, something about it feels strange and unfamiliar, likely because he had grown accustomed to the eunuch's techniques in his past life. Reflecting on this, he recalls the sect emblem the leader showed him, the reverse Teiji symbol. This emblem represents the ancestral techniques of mastering the inverse yin-yang. Chil-Su resolves to adapt fully to this new energy, believing it is key to achieving both his physical and martial ideals. Mastering the technique of inverse yin-yang allows one to harbor two opposing energies within their body, achieving the peak of life force. This is why other sects often labeled them as practitioners of demonic arts. Using two such forces was unnatural. However, unlike demonic sects, they use their martial arts to eliminate demonic threats. Kyung-Soo reminds himself to stay mindful of this distinction and not be deceived by rumors. He's overjoyed to have joined this sect. Eliminating demonic martial sects would surely earn him respect worldwide. Suddenly, a knock comes at the door. A small boy stands there, pleading for help for his grandfather. Tears stream down his face as he implores them, saying if this truly were the most righteous sect in Gansu, they'd surely have someone who had helped the man who supported them his whole life. Jiho asks what's going on, and Chul-Soo explains that someone's asking for help. The problem is, their master isn't around today, leaving them uncertain about what to do. Shortly after, they step outside, and the boy explains he needs help finding whoever stole all his grandfather's goats. Kyul-Soo remarks that such a theft should be reported to the local authorities. The boy insists it wasn't a person who did it. Judging by the tracks and destruction, it must have been something else. He explains that his grandfather always loved this sect and was raising the goats to sell and donate the proceeds, but when he went to fetch them for market, they were gone. Apologizing for being unable to pay, the boy begs them to help his grandfather, who supported the sect his whole life. Chul-Soo, after some thought, agrees to check it out, reasoning that the boy's effort to come all the way up the mountain deserves at least a look. Later, the boy leads them to the scene, and Chul-Soo, noting the location at the base of Gangdong Mountain, suspects it might have been a wild animal. His attention is drawn to some marks on the ground that look like snake tracks. However, the size suggests it's a demonic creature. He asks Jin Hua if there's any legend about a giant snake on Gangdong Mountain. She says she's never heard of such a thing. If it existed, the master would have dealt with it. Chul-Soo knows that the energy accumulating in the Gangdong Mountains could trigger mutations in animals, but something this large would have been noticed before, meaning it appeared recently. He also sees this as the perfect chance to absorb a lot of vital energy. Kyuhei, he'll handle it. Jinhui hesitates, saying it's dangerous to act without informing the master. Kyuhei brushes this off, claiming that causing unnecessary alarm would be unwise, and helping the mountain's residents is a virtuous act. Ignoring the boy's plea could fuel the rumors that their sect is demonic. Jinhua admits this makes sense, and the boy smiles, hopeful they'll eliminate the creature. Hyul-Soo instructs Jinhua to escort the child back home while they follow the snake's trail. Later, as they run through the mountains, Hul-Soo finds the continuation of the trail. Jumping from branch to branch, Jinhua again questions whether acting without the master's knowledge is wise. Hul-Soo assures her that helping villagers is harmless, though his real motive is to accumulate vital energy. They pause on a branch as he advises caution, but suddenly, the trail vanishes. Jinhui warns him to be careful, and when he looks up, the massive snake lunges at him. It strikes him square in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Jinhui screams as Chul-Soo struggles to rise, bloodied and bruised. The narration interjects with a prophecy about a saint from another sect who got lost in Gangdong Mountain and discovered a legendary item, secret techniques abandoned by Gangdong's ancestors, and an elixir. For an ordinary beast to become a demonic creature, it must absorb immense spiritual energy. The mutation likely occurred because residual energy and a cultivation spot affected the snake. Gripping his wounds, Chul-Soo realizes that if he survives, he'll not only restore his vitality, but also grow stronger and recover Gangduong's lost techniques. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and comment down for second part, and stay with us for more juicy content.